Welcome to another episode of Stay in Your Lane. All right, glad to be here again. My name is Nameer and Laith. This is my co-host Laith Al-Bazargan. Say what's up, man.
What's up?
It's good that we're trying this again. Today is a special day. I have my very, very good friend, Malek, who I've been having some discussions with, and I thought it would be great to have you on and try to have a discussion in general. We're talking about COVID, obviously. We're living in these COVID times, these crazy times where we're told to stay inside and not interact. And myself and Michael have been having this conversation since it started, and we've debated a little bit, and we've gone back and forth a little bit. You know, it always ends. It's so funny when we message each other. It always ends with, "That's a very good point, but I don't necessarily agree with it."
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that's generally how we go about it.
So what's the argument? What's between you two?
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't call it an argument.
Or debate.
Debate, maybe. And by the way, just so we put the disclaimer out, we're not trying to advise anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
This is personal opinions only.
Yeah.
Although I am a very qualified master of
Oh God, here we go.
science and health policy. Laith gets bothered because I always have to bring it up.
So yeah,
as a master of
Master
science.
Nameer.
Yeah, so
I'm not bothered. It's just
call me master, please.
I don't want to call you master.
Wow. Are we in Star Wars now?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? I feel like I should have like a cloak or a robe over me. Just like Master Nameer is here. So we've been having this discussion. We've been kind of debating whether it's necessary to have the quarantine or not. And we've debated, obviously, what's interesting is we have the Swedish model in front of us. And I think that's the one that we're kind of reference to. Is it? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the ones I admire, to be honest. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk a little bit about it. We're now what? At about how many cases now, Laith?
Over 2 million.
Over 2 million worldwide.
Yeah.
And the deaths is what? Above 60,000, I think, at this point? More even.
Globally, 200.
200, yeah. 60,000 in the US, I think that's where that number came from. And then obviously I did my little bit of research about Sweden. Mm-hmm. So Sweden now sits at about 25,000 cases and has about, if I'm not mistaken, 2,600 deaths at this point. So it's there.
You're correct. Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty...
22,000 total, 2,600 deceased.
Deceased. Okay. So our discussion was around whether it's necessary to do the quarantine, and how effective is it, and is it sustainable, and then the impact to economy, which outweighs what, right? I think you sent me that article. It was quite interesting about the train track thing, right? Which
the
is
trolley, yeah.
the trolley. So I think it's deserves a little bit of your position. So just, it'd be cool to kind of just hear it from you. What do you feel? So you've always said that the quarantine you think is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, first of all, maybe I should also do this a bit of the same thing you did in the beginning. These are my opinions, and they don't necessarily represent any company or anything I worked with today or I worked with in the past.
Perfect.
I mean, it's, and I have to say it out, put it out there. I'm a very positive person by nature.
Absolutely.
And I definitely would never say that quarantine is completely wrong or that's not the right approach. What I am, though, saying is that the way the world has gone about this has not been the optimal solution for something like this. And we can start debating, different things. And to be honest, I've been talking about COVID-19 for since it began, right?
We've
everybody has. And
of course.
You kind of reach a point where you start to feel kind of sick of it. But to be very honest, I think the world has overreacted in the beginning. I still believe that, and I completely understand it at the same time. So I think it makes sense for us to, when you are faced with something you don't know, to actually take the, knee-jerk reaction and say, okay, you know what? I don't know what's happening. Looks like very serious. Let me
go to the extreme.
Let me go to the extreme. But what we are saying today, what I am saying today, is that I don't understand how we can continue down that path now that we understand a few more things about COVID-19.
Okay.
We have started to see what works, what doesn't work, and we have models like Sweden and models like other countries. There's not only Sweden, to be honest. There are others that experimented with different solutions. And now we can start to basically improve our policy making and our regulations and so on. But I mean, let me stop here because really, I mean, I could just go on forever. Maybe just let me know what you'd like to know more about.
No, it's just like I said, Anya, I think the goal of this and the reason why I wanted to have this, because we always have very engaging conversations, right, about this. And even myself and Laith, whether it's on the podcast or outside of the podcast, we constantly have this discussion like, okay, we're doing this now. How sustainable is this? What are the alternatives? What does this impact to people, to economy, to people's health? Indirectly, right? So we have to keep in mind locking people in their homes
Absolutely
has psychological elements, and then also the fact that people are out of work, right? There's that economic impact, which in turn will result in health impact as well, right? So we've been having this conversation. Really, what I wanted to kind of is just, it's nice to always hear a different approach. And let's say in the magical world that you were in control.
Yeah. What would I do?
What would you have done differently from what has been done now?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I've been thinking a lot about it.
Please.
To be honest, I would have done something very similar to, I guess, what Sweden is doing now or has been doing. For me, it was once the data started coming out, and the first data that started coming from Wuhan and all that, and I don't know if you remember all these slides everybody was sharing about, the percentage of death and the fact that, it's really affecting only elderly, those who have complications, and, kids are almost at no risk. And, if you're young and healthy, the symptoms are going to be mild. I think the percentages from Wuhan was something like 86 or 87% of people who got it, like practically was
fine.
Flu, or it was fine, that they barely felt it. So for me, when this data started coming out, the first thing I would do is say, okay, well, I have an economy. I need to really isolate the elderly and those who are vulnerable, because that's clearly a population at risk.
Okay.
For me, I'm a strategist, right? And for me, I would never take a short-term decision, not thinking about what's going to happen in the long term. And for me, it was very obvious the moment you shut down your economies, the long-term repercussions were going to be huge, because you didn't know how long this would be needed for, right? So what I would have done is just basically shift all the resources. So basically make sure that those that are young and healthy can still produce, but I would have basically asked them to kind of change what they do or help as much as possible in what they do to protect those who are, vulnerable and weak, and start increasing my, capacity, because, everybody was talking about the capacity issue.
Of course.
And the other thing I wouldn't have really panicked about, to be honest, is everybody said, oh, but the healthcare system is overrun, it's going to be overrun. I'm like, but why are you assuming it's linear? Why are you assuming that, we are not going to be able to adapt or change things, or maybe shift centers and hospitals and schools and transform them? I mean, and we've seen it in China. I mean, yes, everybody said, but China is huge. It has a lot of resources.
Yeah.
But so is America, for example. I mean, US is big, right? I mean, true, we don't have the same
discipline.
I wouldn't say discipline, but I mean, the structure of the whole country. When you take a decision, not everybody necessarily follows in democracies, right? Democracies are a bit harder to implement things, but still, that doesn't mean that resources are not there. And when you're calling people to action, just like you've seen in world wars, for example, people will comply and people will respond to that call. So instead of actually locking people in, and again, I have to explain this. I'm not against quarantine. I'm against locking everybody in and shutting down the economy completely. Okay.
Yeah.
I am supporting social distancing, if it's being implemented in a smart way that keeps as much of the economy operating as possible.
So you're wanting basically to kind of give the responsibility to the population to act maturely.
Yeah.
Right? That would be a big dynamic.
I trust in the ability of people, and I know people will say, oh, but maybe you can have the discipline, but look, people don't listen. People don't listen when they're misinformed and when you don't communicate enough to them. And And if I want to jump to the conclusion, to be honest, I think what happened, what was wrong in the world, what is wrong in the world today is no one is really communicating to the population what's going on.
But wasn't that the root of the problem with the numbers coming out of Wuhan and China? Is that nobody really trusted the numbers?
True, that was part of
initially
it. we
were getting them. It was China, Iran, and maybe a handful of
Started
countries that had it.
Italy a bit, yeah.
And I remember January, February, we were like, yeah, okay, it's there, but it's not here yet.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted. I agree with you that stopping the economy is not the right solution, but I think the core of the problem is it's something completely new to our generation, and
Yeah, but is it?
it is. I think we have a very short-term memory.
Yeah.
Very short-term. Like if you're comparing to what, the Spanish flu? That's the
Any flu, I mean, again, what we forget is COVID-19 is a coronavirus, and coronavirus existed.
Before.
This is
Yeah.
the seventh,
Of
I
course.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've had like SARS, MERS.
So we've had SARS and MERS, and we've seen how it behaves. So it wasn't completely new. That's what I'm saying. And at the same time, yeah, again, I understand that we say, you know what, we don't know this. Let's.
But that's
back
my
off.
point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that if it's not the first or second or the seventh time we've had a coronavirus, whose responsibility is it to have the blueprint or the playbook on how to deal with viruses and such pandemics?
Yeah.
It's
So-
obvious this has exposed all
Yeah.
governments, all healthcare systems that they're not.
Please speak into the mic, Laith. You're just kind of drifting off.
That sucks when the tech guy is not
Yeah,
even speaking to the mic.
Yeah, I know, because I'm hearing you fade in and fade out. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't know if I'm surprised, shocked, or maybe I shouldn't be, because we expected governments to, because they're the ones that are
Yeah.
enforcing the lockdown.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give me a lockdown, explain to
Yeah.
me how it works.
Absolutely. And this is my concern with this. There's somebody I was talking to, and he said something. I won't quote the name of the guy because maybe he doesn't want to be quoted. But he said we overestimate and we overtrust governments and policymakers, and we forget that at the end of the day they're human beings, like us,
Exactly.
right? They can make
Exactly.
mistakes, and they can get scared. And I mean, you told me if I was in power. I mean, it's very easy to speak about things when you are not
Of
in the
course.
driver's seat. But
course.
but I'll tell you what. But at the same time, I am somebody who believes that courage and making a difference in people's lives are the two most important values. For myself. So I wouldn't have reacted that quickly to shut down. And we've had these debates before.
We had,
right?
yeah, we did. We did.
The other thing is, there was this data coming out, but there wasn't sufficient scientific data. And I need to answer your question. I still haven't answered it. Who was responsible? In my opinion, we should have trusted the experts, and we should have gone to epidemiologists and tried.
But did they know?
But then, okay, hold up. When
Yeah.
it comes to the experts, it's very sensitive, right? So you had the WHO
Yeah.
didn't even think that this was
Serious.
contagious,
Yeah.
right? They didn't.
They follow the protocol. They
Right.
have a protocol. They're following it.
Yeah, they went through steps as they went to kind of classify this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Again, as you said, we're all kind of trying to understand it as it's developing, as
And
it's
they
coming
don't
out.
want to create mass panic, which eventually was created.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this is it.
I don't think the question should be whose fault it is. Maybe I should. It's more like, okay, what did we do wrong, and how can we
Yeah.
better improve our reaction?
Yeah, I think what we did wrong, very simply. I mean, honestly, it's for me, it keeps crystallizing day after day. The biggest thing we've done wrong, and we as, let's say,
Humanity.
humanity in general, but those who are in the power to actually take certain decisions. I mean, you and I can talk about it forever, but we don't have power
It's
to,
true.
right?
It's true.
At the end of the day, but what those people that we trusted with whatever power they have, let's say policymakers or MOHs, ministries of health and things like that. What they had the power to, step back and say, you know what? We need to inform the population with whatever information we have, even if the information we had was peanuts, right? And in the beginning, it was peanuts.
Correct.
We have to go out, inform the population, and say, this is what we understand so far. These are the risks that you will incur if you go out, as
Yep.
far as we know. These are the risks that you will incur if you are staying at home. Today, we understand that if we implement a policy of lockdown for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the impact on the economy is going to be X, Y, Z.
We never heard that number.
Never, right? No one made the effort.
In any-
Everybody
in
was
any-
too worried to kind of like panic. Again, it was
was a
the
state
same
of
thing.
panic.
It was a state of, and if I'm a policymaker, to be honest, I'll be like, if I don't take the right decision now and I don't take a super safe decision, people are going to come back to me and say, oh, you put us at risk. But again, everybody forgot, and it's like the basic of leadership, right? We see it in corporations, and a lot of corporations suffer from it. Communicate.
Yep.
Give the power, empower your people, right? Your people could have heard and said, well, you know what? I find that really risky for me and for my family. I don't care about the long term. I don't care if I'm going to have psychological issues. I want to be safe today, right? And be like, you know what? I'm going to stay home.
So would you have taken it like a vote? Is it like, I'm just trying to understand
I
the
would
way
have done,
that
again,
you're trying
I
to...
think the Swedish model, if I understand it, and I cannot claim to be the expert on the Swedish model, but if I understood, and from what I heard from, the talks with the head epidemiologists there and so on,
Yeah.
that they gave the choice to people. They said, we recommend that you implement social distancing. These are the measures of social distancing that we recommend. And they left it to the people to implement. Now, usually people tell me, yeah, but these are Swedes, and try to do that in other countries. It doesn't necessarily work. But I don't believe that. I believe that people that are informed, at the end of the day, in this one, if you think about it, who's really at risk? Those who that are at risk and you fear the disease, all what you have to do is stay home.
But
right?
look, my issue is this, and it's, again, the dynamics of the Swedish, and we're going to kind of stick on this one, right? Because it's the practical version. It's the version of what you're saying, which is they were very lax. I'll be honest, right? It's from a perspective of
Very is not what I would
very
say.
lax.
Okay.
To the point where now
talk about
they're tightening. No, they are tightening a lot of the things that they had. So initially
They did protect the elderly. They
not very well.
Yeah, but that's what they said. They said, well, we didn't do it very well, and they explained why, right? They said we had so many issues in communications, by the way,
True.
that actually people did not, because sometimes they have workers who are not, let's say, born Swedish and don't necessarily speak the language, and they realized that actually the information that was spread was not necessarily well, understood.
So it's an immigration problem.
That was an immigration
is
problem
the way
partly.
that it was presented.
But I mean, I'm trying to be a bit more
Bla-
politically
bl-
correct.
blame the immigrants.
No, but the point is, and they have very big, houses, etc., elderly houses, and so it spread very quickly. And so they did admit that they didn't do a very great job. But still, for me, I have a very high respect that they said, okay, this is the population at risk. Let me protect that population. They didn't say let them die. They said, let me protect this population. Let me use those who are healthy to help protect this population, and let me try to get everything moving as normally as possible. If you listen to what they said, I mean, people say, oh yeah, it's all open and it's normal. It's not really. Like if you go to restaurants and bars, they said specifically, no, you cannot be on a bar. You can be very close to people. You have to be seated. You have to be, tables have to be, 2.5 meters apart from you. So they still implemented something.
From what I've read. So obviously I took a little bit of time and effort
As you should.
to look into this, right? So they say that it wasn't enforced at all. Like there are on the streets people picnicking, shaking hands, close
And the street, because they gave them the choice. Yeah.
Close contact, bars,
Groups up to 49.
Yeah, but this is new, by the way. Groups up to 49. It was groups. They were having nightclubs and venues like that were open. 500 was the limit, right? So
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what you mean by new, but I mean,
like it was enforced over the last couple of weeks as they started to see their death rates start to skyrocket. Because in relation to the other Scandinavian countries, in relation to their count, they have a disproportionately high.
yeah, but they explain it, right?
Yeah, they explained it that it leaked into the nursing homes. Right?
Well, not
this is
only
where
that.
they focused their conversation.
Again, I'm not an epidemiologist, but if you read if you listen to every epidemiologist that is out there and they're just trying to really say the truth, they're a bit harsh in the way they put it, but the total death toll will be the same, regardless if you implement a quarantine now or later. The only difference is that those who are today at risk will remain at risk. They're at home protected, and they will remain at risk as soon as they step out. And the reality is, and this is what I'm saying, the reality is the moment you're going to open up, whether you're at full lockdown, partial lockdown, the moment you're going to open up over a time frame, if you freeze it, let's say for a year or 2 years, if you calculate the total death, I'm pretty sure, I'm not the epidemiologist, but I believe in that theory, the same number of people are going to die, regardless. Now, what is you're seeing in Sweden is the highest number is now. Why? Because those that are risk are going first, right?
But this
Is that the strategy that they're going with? Is that they know that the first 2-3 months we're gonna have, like, when they opened it up,
They want to protect, right? They still, again, they didn't say let
economy
them die.
or people?
No, both people, the elderly and vulnerable, and the economy, right? Because the thing is, it's very hard to balance the two, right? You say, okay, well, I protected all these guys, but then all my young ones are gonna die of hunger, or are gonna die of
Depression,
jobless, of depression,
yeah.
or other diseases. Everybody's forgetting other diseases, or my children, my country's children, will not be immune because they're hidden in houses and they're exposed to the same viruses and bacteria all the time. The moment they're going to step outside. And I think the main difference, for me, that I don't understand why people don't really think of it, is that either you say, I'm going to be locked down forever, and I'm never going to go out
until
again.
a vaccine is out.
Until a vaccine. But then what do you do with the other diseases that are going to come out? Do you think Corona is going to be the last one?
No.
Right? I mean,
For
it
sure.
just doesn't make
For sure
sense,
not.
right? We've been humans on this planet for millions of
interesting.
years. So either you're going to say, I'm going to stay at home and I don't want to go out and this is my new being human. Or you're going to say, well, there is a reality to human beings that they cannot be confined forever. And therefore, we need to find a way that is sustainable for the long term.
So, look, Ani, for me, on my perspective, I would make the argument that a large number of the deaths that initially happened in Sweden because of their inexperience, and I'll be fair, inexperience in this situation, and they seen that it leaked in or it fell into the nursing homes because they didn't take the right protocols initially to
They
protect.
weren't fast enough. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I would make the argument that if a complete quarantine lockdown was done, today, how we behave now is completely different from where it was before the lockdown. So we've learned a lot. There's been a lot of knowledge, I feel as though, in terms of knowing how it's spread, knowing
knowledge.
Yeah,
yes.
right?
I agree.
So when I'm not disagreeing with the social distancing element or the reduced tight lockdown that you're talking about, or having a Swedish model today. But I think that learning curve was critical for the population.
But
I think you would have avoided a lot of the deaths because, as you said, you set aside those people who are the high risk, but also again, in the same way, we have seen time and time again that there are healthy people with no immune deficiencies that are also getting sick as
but
well,
hasn't
right?
been always the case. I mean, this is what I don't want. What people are forgetting is that it seems the world has stopped with COVID-19. It's like everything else. I mean, aliens. Like the Pentagon actually just.
You saw that?
Yeah, I seen that. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
right?
It's
I mean,
crazy.
but no one even noticed that news because everybody is focused on COVID.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how the world has just frozen because of that. And again, the reality of the situation is that we need to continue with our lives. We need.
Agreed.
Before I go actually to that point, I wanted to make something to make a point to what you just said. I understand that maybe the lockdown did help in that sense, right? But no one had a look again at at what cost did that come? Locking down, was it really the cost we were willing to pay for that knowledge that you just spoke about?
I would argue yes, because I would say look at what happened in Italy. Look what happened in a situation where, for me personally, and I always said it, my concern has never been, and I don't want to sound like unemotional. Yeah. It was never been around death rate. Yeah. Right. I think from the beginning.
And it's misleading, and it still is.
Yeah, it's not misleading. I wouldn't say it's misleading. I think it's been quite clear, and it's still running on those numbers. Anywhere between 1 to 1.5% is the actual death rate.
My number is much lower.
And
what I believe the real number is still, if you calculate it, 0.1 to 0.5%. Because everybody forgets that there are so many cases out there that no one ever detected.
No, but that's it. Even at the 1.5%, you would still be talking about a significant amount more. So what we said, how many people today? 3 million worldwide? on 60,000?
But again, the
3.4.
numbers, Nameer, for me, the
3 point-
numbers are
3 point-
meaningless, honestly. Because you cannot freeze them. You cannot, today you are freezing time and you're saying, well, this is the number today. Oh my God, it's huge. It's not even huge, even by today's terms. But, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's not huge even by today's terms. But if you even give it a chance and wait for a year and then come back to me and tell me what the numbers were, then I'll have the debate with you. Tell me when we detected all the cases that were actually out there, and then I'll tell you what the number is. Even if you ask a few friends around you, just ask this question. Maybe we should ask it on this podcast. How many of the audience now believe that they actually had it?
You know, it's funny, you were just saying that. I was thinking about a study that, the one that we talked about in California, where the percentage they're saying is similar to the percentages you're saying, is that they suspect over 400,000 people are infected in California alone that don't have symptoms.
Yeah.
Which brings down your death rate tremendously.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to debate numbers, honestly, because I just find it futile. Because I'll bring a bunch of numbers, you're going to bring a bunch of numbers, and we're just going to debate them. It just won't mean anything because we are actually just looking at a time frame that is still, for me, statistically insignificant.
Do you think there'll be a second wave?
Second wave? Depending on what you define the wave. For me, it's not gone. It's a virus, it's not gone.
It will always be there. Like
and
the
it will
flu.
always be there. Like the flu. And yeah, this point on the flu, I have to stop a bit. All what we know in science today, as an epidemiologist that you listen to, they tell you it does behave like a flu. It is not a flu. And those who tell you that this is a flu, it's just another flu, that's completely wrong. No, because it's a mainstream thing, right?
Yeah, it's a virus.
Yeah,
It's
it's just another flu. No, it's not another flu. It's a virus that has a behavior that mimics the behaviors of the flu.
Yeah.
However, and why this is important, because certain governments or policymakers have taken decisions based on the fact of, we know how the flu behaves. We know that kids are the biggest risk and spreaders of flu, but actually with COVID-19 they're the lowest. There actually are very few cases that have been proven that children actually transferred them to adults. So actually today COVID-19, according to scientists, is not, or the age group that are the least transferring or contagious are actually the children. Yet you see policies in many places in the world where they say, children, keep them home. We don't want children outside.
So we're experiencing it here, right? Like with that, those are the rules, right?
Yeah.
In the malls.
Yeah, the 3 to 12, to be honest, in the UAE, I don't know where it came from, but there must be some logic for it.
3 to 12 and 60 and above. Yeah. My point again is
60 and above, you understand, right? They have higher chances of being at risk. But I mean, if scientists are saying that the youngs are not, and I don't know where they draw the line. But anyway, that's another point. But I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, but I think there's always questionable data around these like age things. I think it's been proven, right? We're still trying to find information about this. But again, just coming back to the point of the system, right? And for me, that was always the key point: is can the system handle the load? And I was giving the example of Italy.
Yes.
Right? No one can doubt and no one can make the argument that Italy did not suffer something tremendous, right? Where they had a load to their system that they could not sustain, right? Yes, they have an older population. They have a demographic that was kind of
I'll tell you more about it, but yeah, go ahead.
All right. And they were in a position where they were refusing to treat people. The UK did that as well, right? So the UK is doing that right now, where they're triaging people and determining... Based on risk and determining, not even risk, they're taking factors like age and
but
those
that's not
elements.
true. I mean, true, partially true. I'll explain it, but just finish your point.
Yeah, so the point being is, my concern is, look, it was always going to be that once you introduce a quarantine, and a quarantine is effective, by the nature of it being effective, we're going to sit and have a debate and an argument on whether it was necessary or not.
It works because if you don't complain about it, it didn't work. That's what you want to say.
Well, this is it, right? Like, we don't know if you unleashed it or you trusted it. So,
but again, who said to unleash it?
Okay, you put the trust in the people to behave in an appropriate way, right, and to social distance on their own, to take good decisions, to wash their hands, to do all these right things and awesome things, right? That the system would be able to cope with it. That is the point where I struggle.
Yeah, but I don't struggle, honestly, because for me it's simple logic. You tell people to take the right decisions, right? Not right, actually, there's no right here. The decision that they believe is the right one for themselves, right? If I am somebody who feels I'm at risk, that knows I'm at risk, I don't know. My sister has multiple sclerosis, for example. Okay, fine. She knows she's a doctor, so she continued going to work. She knew the risk, but she continued to go to work, right?
Yeah.
My parents are elderly, but and they know. But then they came back and they said, listen, we know the risk now. We understand the risk. However, for example, we want to see our grandchild. Even if this is the last month of my life, I don't want it to be in isolation. So they had a choice, right? And I'm just giving the example because, I don't want to give other people's examples, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are thinking the same way. The thing is, if I am at risk and I'm afraid, there's nothing preventing me from being home. Companies are being supportive, right? Companies said, well, if you need to work from home, go work from home. Stay home. Even before, the total lockdowns were done. So people could have been provided the choice. If you feel you're at risk, stay home. Don't do that. Don't go out. If you don't want to go out, don't go out. But if I am willing to take that risk, and I'll get to the point on the healthcare system pressure. The other thing, again, the healthcare system.
But you taking that decision impacts my life.
Not really. Why does it impact your life? You're at your home, hidden. You don't have any issue. That's one. The other,
that's if I'm at that extreme. But again, in any scenario, what I'm doing, even if I'm responsible.
Yeah, but you can go out and put your mask
on
and have your social distancing. No one is telling you not to do your social distancing. Just let me please finish this point. And the other thing is that the healthcare system, yes, got pressure, and we'll talk about Italy if you want. It's interesting actually when you talk to Italians, and I've been doing a lot of that recently. You learn a lot about the Italian system. So what happened is that, if you say, the healthcare system is going to be overrun, it might happen on, a few case-by-case basis. Let's say in specific areas they get a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. But if the policymakers or whoever has the decision, or the power to do this, we're focusing actually on finding solutions versus just panicking and locking people down and actually reducing capacity. Because if you tell a nurse that has a child at home, the child now has no school anymore, has to be at home, she has to be at home with him, and therefore she cannot be at work, right? And it happened a lot. In the Netherlands, that's one of the biggest problems they had, actually, in the healthcare system, is that children ended up home, and then, they had to send people home to take care of those, kids. Mm-hmm. So anyway, if we were focusing on the solution, to how do I increase capacity? How do I manage my institutions? How do I, transfer patients from one place to the other? France, for example, opened its borders, right? You had a lot of Italians going to France and vice versa, and so on. If, for example, in Europe, all countries worked on figuring out what is the best way to allocate the people between, the different institutions, or, start, moving to converting existing locations to increase capacity, right? There were so many things you could do.
That wouldn't solve the ventilator issue, would it?
No, but then... But then not everybody would need a ventilator anyway, right? And again, I'm telling you, the first few weeks to do a lockdown is justifiable. And I don't think anyone in the world can say, well, that was a bad decision. No, it wasn't, because we didn't have enough information. Yeah. But information started coming up pretty early on. I mean, I'm not a genius and I'm not an epidemiologist, and I'm just reading out there, and you can see solutions. You saw companies rushing to multiply, companies multiplying the ventilator production by 2 times and 4 times, and working with the Teslas and the GEs of the world and the Fords of the world to increase manufacturing and so on. And now actually we are at some people are saying we might have actually started overproducing ventilators, because they realize it's not the ventilator that's really, it's the viscosity of the blood now that they're saying is actually the main cause of the clotting.
From the clotting and the issues, yeah.
And so on. So my point is, instead of focusing our energy on just locking down, and it's kind of you face a problem in life, and the first thing you do is run away from it versus find and increase your strength to kind of fight it, right? And then everybody talking about the vaccine, nobody talking about how can we increase the natural immunity of people. Why don't people start working on healthier habits, for example, to get their immunity up? Instead, actually, those who exercise and actually try to keep their health had to find extreme ways to continue their exercise at homes in confined environments to stay healthy. So it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes. The same decisions that we want to protect the people are actually causing people to reduce their immunities, for example, right? Being locked at home and things like that. So what I'm saying is that there needed to be a knee-jerk reaction. I understand in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks in the beginning.
It's a necessary,
We didn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We're not sure the data is right. Or
Buying
but then
time.
after that,
Oh.
you have to focus every single resource you have on actually fighting this and building your life, continuing your. And to be honest, I think our debate is a bit futile because economy will just force it. And this is what's happening today. Countries are actually forced to find solutions because the economy cannot take it, and people are just jobless, and jobless people become a problem, and you have riots.
Yeah,
and
this is where we are now, right? Like, we look at the U.S.
Yeah, but we didn't need to get here. This is my point. I was like, anybody who looks, at economies would have understood that this is going to be the next step, because this is not a country problem; it's a global problem. And if you're multiplying, unemployment on a global scale, what do you do, right? If you have unemployment in one country, people fly and
I've
work
heard
in another. Where do they go now?
numbers is like some 200 million.
Yeah.
200 million people
What?
have been
Unemployed?
unemployed.
Yeah,
Due to the
and I'll tell you something more
worldwide.
controversial. Sorry. Now, a lot of people are going to also blame psychology and say, oh, now I'm in a depression because of COVID-19. But the reality is it exacerbated already existing problems.
Wasn't
right?
weren't we headed towards a recession?
I felt like we were,
Yeah.
how
Globally.
we were having.
Globally.
We were,
Yeah.
but we
We were
kind of shot
overheating.
ourselves in the foot and really
We
caused it.
exaggerated it.
We pushed it. We gave it
We
that
pushed
extra.
it to
We
the-
exaggerated
I mean, there are good things, and I'm actually, I'm a positive person, so I am actually now writing about the positive things that came out of COVID-19, right? I do believe there was a lot of positive things.
Definitely.
I agree.
The transformation in healthcare being is one of them. But
Family, I would say.
yeah, but I think a lot of people are starting to forget family. So I don't. We can get there if you want, but yeah, for me, the main problem goes back to that trolley, article, and I think the guy. I don't know if you guys share, articles or things at the end of this. Or links, but I think this guy
Sure, we
is.
can.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at it. What he portrayed for me in that article, spoke so clearly. He said, "Listen, if you had to take a decision, a life and death decision, the minimum that is expected of you is that you inform the person that is, at the receiving front of that decision on, what are the risks that they are
Signing up for.
right?" And I think very few, maybe none actually, in the world have actually done that with COVID-19. We don't know we went and started looking for our information, right? We relied on social media, and we know how much junk is out there, right? So people had to also filter through that noise and through that junk.
There was some unbelievable
There were
things.
pictures and things coming up from things that has nothing to do with COVID-19.
Using a blow dryer up your nose while rinsing.
I mean, there were. So the craziness.
Don't do that,
So the
people.
only thing you wanted.
Don't drink Clorox.
Please,
Bleach.
We said,
No
bleach. I'm telling you, bleach does not work. Lysol, Dettol came out and they refuted that. So
How
please
do
don't,
you know?
don't listen to that nonsense.
Can I snort some Tide?
No, none of that. That's not going to help you out.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, so if somebody just informed us and said, well, you know what, I'm taking these policies because of X, Y, Z, and this is the risk that I see, and you as a population now have to decide. You have to decide whether you want to carry the risk short term, being infected, and these are the risks, and we know, roughly, right?
Rough numbers. Yeah.
Rough numbers. I don't need even more exact numbers. I mean, if you tell me you have an 86% chance to be okay, I'm fine with that. You might not be, right? I'm just saying, somebody tell me, what do you know today? And tell me, okay, you take now your decision. Do you want to continue your work? The problem is that today, a lot of people were not given that choice. You were told to shut down. Companies were told to shut down. So basically, you told people, well, you know what? There's a risk on somebody who might get infected, who might die if he is not very, well quarantined, etc. But you are definitely going to lose your job. You are going to definitely lose your livelihood, and you are definitely have to figure out a way to survive and your children to survive.
I think in
and a new reality. And everyone was like, but I wasn't given the choice. Maybe I don't want that.
But I think in every scenario, there is someone on the shitty end, right?
Yeah, but this is globally, and this is the problem. if it was in a place, if it was localized, if it was something that we said, well, you know what, if you don't like it, go find something somewhere else. Well, you can't find a job somewhere else if this is what we're doing here. But on a global scale, what do we do? I mean, honestly, I think of our children. I don't care about myself right now, right? I mean, a lot of people can manage, especially adults, right, and who have gone through things in life, and even then, I'm not sure. But children, I mean, children that are just growing in this environment, growing and looking at people around them wearing masks everywhere, actually not being able to leave houses in certain countries.
Can't even socialize.
For weeks, for months now. How is that going to be for that development? How is that going to be for the immunity system? How is that going to be for their future? What kind of future? I'm going to spend probably the next, I don't know, I don't want to be pessimistic in this case. So let's be optimistic, right? Economies are going to recover, hopefully, in 2 years start recovering and what have you. So basically it's going to take the average household around 2 to 5 years to actually maybe go back to the same livelihood that they were at today.
Probably, yeah.
How is that going to impact? So those children that are, at 2 years old and 7, so between 2 and 7, between 2 and 8, this is the biggest development for children. How are they going to be developing, right? I mean, today we do homeschooling and we do online schooling. My child is in front of a laptop, I don't know. She's 2 years, 2 years, almost 3 years now, sitting in front of a laptop, right, for hours and hours, and then can't get the exercise that she needs to exercise because she cannot go out. She lives in an apartment, not even having the chance to be, let's say, in a villa or having a garden to go to.
Yeah.
And then, how is she going to develop? I genuinely worry about this generation. And what I'm saying is, no one asked me if the risk was worth it. I don't believe the risking my child and my future and the economy's future and a wider population, 80%, 86%, basically of the population who is not at risk. I'm risking their lives, really their lives, over long term, and I'm damaging it. No one can
for
tell
the
me
sake of the 14%.
For not necessarily the 14, for the sake of the 14% that I will be able to better protect if I actually use the 86% to protect the 14% and increase the capacity and maybe find a cure quicker because we had 10 people working on it versus one person who is not at home. you know?
It's a valid argument.
This is where I see the world should have gone, to basically loop back to the beginning. This is where the world should have gone, and we should have used our resources to do that. Optimistically, I do believe this is the natural trajectory that humanity will have to follow, right?
Look, it's clear. It's clear now we're at a stage where we're gonna have to come out of this quarantine phase, right? It's coming, right?
That's another risk, by the way.
Some new form. What do you mean?
How you come out of it? How? How do you prioritize? Based on what?
How do you prioritize? What do you mean?
So let's say you're a country that went on a full lockdown.
Yes.
What do you open first? How do you know? Do you know if it should be the schools or it should be the malls or it should be the
Well, look,
parks?
if you're asking me personally, look, I think everything should open up except for the schools.
But
I'm not a
then
fan
why
of the
did you lock
schools.
it? Then why did you lock? Because the moment you're going to open up, you're going to get the same issue.
No, because now we're at a stage where we understand maybe we've built up the capacity, which I think is one of the reasons.
We bought some time to build capacity.
Yeah, we bought some time. I think that's a big thing.
The big thing of the quarantine is just to buy some time to better understand how we can
and build the capacity, right?
Yeah.
I think here in Dubai, they've created the trade center, and I think that's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, and again, I think you're right, and I don't think there is one size fits all solution. No. What I'm saying is the approach, though, should have been with a mentality of growth and not of a mentality of fear.
What do you think of travel, air travel?
Oof. I don't want to get on a plane. I don't feel comfortable getting on a plane. And you know what? Even if I get on the plane, I don't feel comfortable staying in a hotel room. That's the other thing. I don't have the confidence.
Honestly, if somebody would tell me today you can get COVID-19 and get over with it, I would do it.
Yeah, but okay, that's under the assumption that it's an immunity thing and you can't get it again, which is not proven to this point.
Not even again, get it again.
People,
it's just that I want to get it over with, to be honest with you. And I'm confident that my immunity is strong enough to get over it.
It may not function in that way, right?
Yeah,
you may get it.
Yeah,
you may get infected again.
So what? The flu, you get it every year.
Yeah, but that's under the assumption that you are at a lower risk or you won't have a
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Or it won't mutate.
That is what I'm saying. Again, I'm taking an informed decision based on what I understand the risk factors to be. And I'm saying, well, given the risk factors surrounding somebody like me, a male of 39 years old, healthy, exercising, taking his vitamins, implementing, I'm not going to go out there and kiss everybody, right?
Yeah.
Implementing normality and actually socializing with people.
Are you shaking hands?
If somebody wants to, I shake their hand. But honestly, I don't want to force it on people. And again, by the way, that's another issue I have.
That's so weird. Right?
That's another issue I have because no, don't get me started on that one. No,
Shaking hands
honestly,
is gone. This is gonna be something in 50 years. People are gonna look at it and be like, "What the hell?"
I refuse to let it go.
Except for Michael.
Yeah, I refuse to take basic humanity out of our human lives. I'll tell you why. Have you walked? You probably did, but look at us, people at the shop. With a mask, people are literally miserable. Everybody is miserable. Nobody is even saying hi. I'm making an effort, by the way, to say hi, even behind the mask.
Me too.
Yeah, and try to smile to see. I was experimenting the other day. If I smile, would people,
can they tell from your eyes?
Can people tell from my eyes? Actually, they do, which is a good news. But I was like, oh my God, what what's happening to the world? And it's what I fear is that becomes the norm, and people think that it's normal. It's not normal. It's exceptional. It shouldn't be the case. And again, I don't want to live in a world that's like that.
You've just covered so much, right? Like, because I'm just trying to like
COVID-19. You can't really, because it touches everything. And then you have the social aspect, then you have the human aspect, right? You have the healthcare aspect, you have the economy aspect.
We are living in a very unique time, right? We're all going through this experience. We're all learning as we're going on. Again, at its core, right, and I want to reiterate this, right, at its core, I honestly feel as though the capacity building was necessary, because I think for me, and I repeated that over and over again, the only concern I really had, put the numbers to the side, was, can the system sustain? Because the fear of a system not being able to sustain or have the capacity to cope is that you run a risk of other complications, other people with other conditions.
You have that reality. That's true.
Yeah, being unable to get treated, and then that snowballs into something bigger, right?
That's true. But what I'm saying is exactly the same. I'm saying, yes, that was a risk, and yes, we saw it, but it was, for me, a bit premature to say, no, we will not be able to manage. We kind of like said, oh, the healthcare system can never manage. Why? I mean, it's not linear. It's not going to stop here. It was for me very weird to assume that, people are not going to find solution to something like this to create more capacity. And you see it in Sweden. They tripled it almost overnight. Maybe not overnight. It took a bit longer, but they tripled every single country that you know of, except maybe very poor countries. I don't know, and I don't want to even jump to conclusions there. Maybe they can, and I'm underestimating them. Every single country who has relatively okay economy has managed. And again, everybody assumed that, that this is, look at what's happening to Italy.
Have they managed because of the quarantine, or have they managed because of...
No, and I honestly think people were misinformed, and I think time will tell. I hope I was wrong, because then it would be really tragic comedy. I think a lot of people have had it already, and they just didn't realize it. So I think a lot of the people that we think we're protecting actually don't need the protection. But again, maybe time will only tell that. But Italy, I just wanted to say something about Italy. When you start talking to Italians, and you try to understand the system. So I have friends, they have a grandmother, 86-year-old.
Yeah.
And, and she has friends who are 96 and 97-year-old. And they kept visiting her. They kept seeing each other.
Okay.
These are, how did you tell somebody who's been to world wars, that
exactly.
You're going to hide,
stay home.
Something, right? They just didn't get it, right? The 86-year-old got sick. And then she went to the hospital, had the pneumonia, and then she went out. And she's fine. And everybody in her household, so the parents were still living with her. In Italy, they have that culture. And I'll start explaining that.
That's a big thing.
None of them got infected. They kiss her every day. They tell me, I kissed her every day before they knew that she was sick, right? Mm-hmm. None of them got infected. So how many people out there are like that? That we, even before, we think that it started in January or, end of December, right? Maybe it was before. Nobody knew.
Were they not infected? Like, did they get tested and showed zero?
But they don't test them now because they're not at risk. They didn't
So they
show
could have
any
been
symptoms.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they could have been infected, but they have zero
That's
symptoms.
what boggles my mind. Is
Yeah,
that,
so again,
Why people get it and why people don't get it? Like,
I mean, I think we've all had that.
Because what they're
thought
saying
where,
now-
am I infected or not?
and now they're saying, I don't know if that's true, if it has been proven. I don't remember reading anything. I read this a week ago and I didn't see anything else. They're saying now it starts with the gut. It actually doesn't hit your respiratory system. It starts with the gut. And then either it evolves and spreads and then starts hitting the lungs, or it doesn't.
That's the first time I hear that.
Yeah.
It starts with
I'll
the
send
gut.
you
But
a
it's
few articles on that.
Respiratory, right?
It is respiratory.
It becomes respiratory. That's what they're saying. It's
That's
just sitting there like any other. Like there's a lot of other viruses in our bodies, right? They're just
Sure.
quiet.
No,
Dormant.
but I heard that the gut element or the stomach element, the acidity kills the virus. and
Yeah,
that's
but
why
that's not. It's apparently still maybe lives in your intestines or something.
was this
I
like
don't know.
a like a solid, like a journal, like a well
It's
documented.
a scientist. I mean, it's a scientist-based study, right? I mean, it's not scientific study. I mean, it's not somebody.
It's not just an
saying, "I guess
opinion
this
or
is
an
what
editorial
happened."
or something like
But
that.
but
But I
again,
think
I mean,
people have to be careful.
regardless of what it is, going back to Italy. So Italy is a very peculiar country, right? The elderly, there is a lot of elderly, and we know demographically they have that. But
One of
even
the oldest.
culturally, they're very close knit, and the social gathering and the grandma and the grandpa is something very important. That's part of the family, right? And the other very interesting healthcare factor that I didn't know about, and that explains the spread. That everyone's like, what's going on in Italy? What's going on in Italy is that apparently in the healthcare system, when somebody's sick, they all have a community doctor. There's one doctor, a GP of some sort, that everybody goes to. And the first thing that happens when you get sick is you go to that doctor. So what was happening is that a lot of people feeling certain symptoms, they might have had it, they're going to that to that doctor.
Same doctor that was.
The same doctor. And then you
Wow.
have all the population in that community go to that one doctor. And that's the spread.
So he's but whatever, patient zero, or, the main
it might not
agent.
be the doctor. It might be in the waiting room, right? Everybody's waiting to see that doctor,
Yeah.
and they're just getting infected. And that's what happened. And now they changed it, apparently. But I didn't know that about Italy. No one knew. And again, this is just a point to say that, don't tell me, oh, look at what's happening in Italy. Look at what happened.
Each case is different.
Just study the cases. Put the effort to actually realize what's happening.
To
My
understand.
situation, our situation in the UAE cannot be the same as the situation in the
Sure.
US. We
Yeah.
have already, large spaces. We are able to live, let's say, in bigger homes.
Younger population.
We have a younger population. In general, very healthy population, very, sports driven, etc. I mean, weather is not the same. And you can just not copy paste policies everywhere the same way.
I agree. Look. There are points I definitely agree. Although, like I said, and you've been very eloquent in expressing yourself. I still feel there are a lot of flaws in the same way that you're saying the Swedish model is one to be emulated, right? And I'm maybe taking your words out of.
Yeah, you are
out of-
taking.
I don't want to
didn't
say that. Okay.
exactly that.
Put it aside. Looking at the Swedish model again, and just to touch on the point that you've just said now, the Swedish model is very unique to Sweden because of the demographics of Sweden as well, right? More than 50% of the population lives on their own, right? So by default, they're socially distanced,
Yeah.
right? So they're a population, and then the population that got hit the hardest in Sweden,
Is the old age homes?
was the immigrants, as you were saying. Right? Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
So the majority of the
All the
cases were that, and that's why he says, in terms of the communication, that we didn't communicate very well with the population in terms of the immigration population in how to conduct
And they
themselves
by
during
default
the-
don't necessarily live in the best hygiene
Yeah.
possible, right?
Same thing, busy, packed places, families
On top
all
of each
together on top of each other in that dynamic. But again, the point that I'm trying to make is that the Swedish model, if you want to consider it as effective, I still don't think it's
You
effective.
cannot
because-
assess it now anyway.
Yeah, I think it's too early to assess. And I think, look, what they've done now is they've started to tighten it up because they've seen it kind of get out of control. The epidemiologist, Andre, I want to get his name right. What's his name? Andre, you have to look it up. Andre something. So he's the main guy, the father behind this whole strategy in Sweden. He's very specific about his, and he's not wanting to really kind of fold on it. And now he's starting to get a lot of pressure because of the flaws, I wouldn't say flaws, or because of the situations that are happening out of it. I agree with you. It's too early to determine if it was
The
very,
last
very effective.
article, sorry to interrupt you, but the last article I read is exactly the opposite. They're saying, oh, finally it's proven its success.
The WHO has now,
Andreas Tegnell?
yes,
Tegnell.
teg-
Tegnell. Tegnell.
yeah.
Maybe it's spelled
Yeah.
or pronounced differently in Swedish.
Sure. Sorry if we're mispronouncing your name,
Andreas.
Andreas Tegnell. Tegnell. Anyways, so I know the WHO has come out and said, we are looking at the Swedish model as a potential, let's say, model to follow. But again,
It's too late.
it is too late. And no, I won't say it's too late. Look, there is a second phase.
Too late for the economy or too late
No,
for
too
the...
late. Too late to follow the model, because if you're already on lockdown, there's no way you can follow the model anymore.
No, you just come out.
Yeah, but you come out. You need to come out very slowly. The same guy, Andre, says, if you are on full lockdown and you say the next day, oh, it's open, you're gonna get the healthcare system overrun, right? Because then everybody is gonna just.
It's going to surge again. Yeah.
So again, that's what I'm saying. How do you get out is another thing. I'm actually part of an INSEAD group that is, basically having debates and talks and trying to plan on what is the best way and strategize on the best way for different countries to come out of this. But I mean, the reality today is that it's a hit and miss approach. I don't think today anybody can tell you what is the best thing to do, right? I mean, and look around the world. It just really depends on what works best for the economy, right? Without maximizing the risk on the population. So I just want to. How much time do we still have?
We have time. We have time. Talk.
For me, the key takeaway, the key takeaway in my message is that choice should not have been taken away from people. In the beginning, I understand. It's like, you're heading to a catastrophe and you can see it, and then you say, well, you know what, I can see a catastrophe. I have to take immediate action. Everybody should do this or that, right? But then you start seeing other information, and then the normal thing you should have done is go out and inform your population, not assume that they're stupid or that they're not able to follow instructions. Give them the choice. These are the risks, short-term, long-term. Take your decisions. Again, because in this particular case, taking one decision did not take the liberty out of the decision maker on the other side, but it did if you flip it, right? If I am somebody who wanted to go out and continue a normal life and go work, for example, I have been prevented. So my freedom has been taken away from me. But the person who could have stayed home and protected himself,
taking that decision,
he has had always
but would
that
have been
decision.
isolated, or probably most likely.
But they want to be isolated. This is the thing.
No.
right?
But I guarantee you, I can assure you, and knowing human nature,
nobody wants to.
No. The corporations. I think businesses as a whole would have directly or indirectly punished those that wouldn't have been willing to go out and work.
No, they wouldn't be if they have been. Again, you're a policy maker. This is what the policymaker's job is, right? You say, I'm giving this information. Switzerland, they told people to go back to work. They're starting to go back to work, right? But they told them you have the choice to go back to work.
Yeah.
You can stay home. And you have no, and they said that nobody can take, there will be no repercussions for those who decide to stay home.
That's but then you can easily tie in
but that's
a
better,
redundancy plan with the people that are not showing up.
But that's better than zero. Today you have zero productivity almost. I mean, people are just hiding homes. And it depends. Again, big corporate, don't have a big problem. I mean, it's actually a very nice experiment to see if people can work from home.
Remotely, working remotely, which I think
small
is
businesses,
quite effective.
entrepreneurs, like these guys, you're basically killing them, right? I mean, for me, there is no, at this stage, the price of that, the little benefit that we got from it, in my opinion, does not justify the price we had to pay.
Put yourself in a situation where you're hesitant. So let's put that scenario out there. Like, you give the decision to the people. You tell them the risk is 85%, 86%. Go out
If I knew the number, but so
let's assume they knew the number. They say
Yeah.
there's an 86% chance
Of getting infected?
No, 86% chance that you're fine. There's
Okay.
a 15% chance of you or
getting
14
something that is,
detrimental that could make you really sick. Let's say
yeah.
you are hesitant. You work for Michael. You work for Nameer, who owns a small, medium business. You're a waiter, average. You need your income day in, day out. Yet you do not feel comfortable with that ratio. But realize very clearly that if you don't go in, they will hire someone else in your place.
If they find someone else, but yeah.
If they find someone else, most likely they will. People are always looking for jobs.
No, but it's the same dilemma for any other person, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure you put that out to the population. You're going to find someone.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Let's say on the same
let's
ratio.
take it to
So
the
out of
end.
every 100, you'll have 15
Yeah,
people
yeah.
willing to go. Let's say
Yeah.
take that same scenario.
That have been laid off from somewhere else. Yeah.
Right? You now go. You go to your job as a waiter. You feel uncomfortable because you're not happy with the situation. You feel the pressure. You get sick or you don't get sick.
Yeah.
Someone in your house gets sick because of that.
Yeah.
What does that do for that person? How does that person...
Two things here. One,
and haven't you taken the choice out of his hands?
Sure. Two things. I haven't taken the choice out of his hands. It's just a difficult choice. I haven't taken the choice out of his hands, right? And just to tell you, we do these choices every day. Like when we travel. I mean, a lot of people work and travel every week. Do you think they want to go on the plane every week? They want to take that risk every week? No, but they do it because they decided, well, it's worth it for my family, for whatever it is. I want the livelihood that is associated with it. So we take these kind of decisions in our normal life. It's a very similar decision that this person is having to take.
So he's taking that thing, he's putting it in an equation and saying this is worth it.
If that person
And then
says,
if it
well, you
bites
know
him,
what,
bites
my
him.
life is what I value the most, and I think that risk is not something I'm comfortable with. I don't want to take it. They'll say, I don't want to go to the job. They might say, well, you know what, I'm going to stay home and become a writer. I don't know, figure out something else that they want to do. Again, it's a choice. It's a difficult choice, but it's a choice.
Yep.
But you cannot tell the owner, shut down your business, lay off 10 employees because one guy is not comfortable.
No, fair. No, it's a very well struck. Like again, I appreciate the way you're positioned. It makes sense. It makes sense. There's a lot of sense behind the points that you're making. I get that concept of choice and no choice, right? In the social distancing scenario, you're giving the choice to the people.
Further. My other concern is the moment you tell people that if there is a big bad wolf out there, to quote my daughter, there's a big bad wolf out there, you're going to keep, if it suits you, you're going to keep creating big bad wolves. I'm not saying it happens in all countries, but certain countries can really benefit from something like this. Yeah, the boogeyman, right? I'm at risk of losing power. You know what? COVID-19 is the best thing for me. People, hide at your home. There's this big monster outside. Don't challenge me on any decision. I'm only caring for your lives, right? Everybody stays home.
Yeah.
You can, again, I think you can do it for only a certain amount of time because I do believe human beings are social by nature.
Yeah.
And that, even those who are very happy today, and there are people who are very happy today. I mean, if you talk to different forums, there's always I think quite a few that are actually saying, "Ooh, you know what, I like this," in a way. And then, I had actually a friend say, I'm not sure how to go back to normal life anymore.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Can I, if I'm to be honest, it's not necessarily about the work, right? So I'm not put work to the side for a bit. I'm enjoying the family dynamic now in the new unquarantined, unhardcore. Like, so now I have the option to go out between 6 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I can move around, which is important for me. We've always been fortunate that we have the villa and we have the space to run around and stuff. But I kind of like the family element. I feel like my kids have learned to be closer
and that's
with
one of the
each other.
positives, right? That's what I was saying.
Absolutely.
So, maybe what we realize, what I think a lot of people were talking about it, right? That the future of working is actually going to be a remote, right? So again, that's something maybe as a catalyst to it, right? So I'm not saying that's bad. Yeah, no, that's not bad. But again, that's a choice.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, fair.
That's a choice. But think about, I'll give you the other extreme, right? I have a colleague. I mean, he's a triathlete. So he keeps really training very hard. His training has been stopped, basically, or very, very damaged.
Yes.
He lives alone in
Yes.
one apartment. He was going through depression. I mean, the poor guy, like he was. So you were on this side happy, spending more time. I was happy spending more time with my daughter, etc.
And then there are people that are
And
alone.
there are people
yeah,
that
of
are alone.
course.
So
Yeah, of
these
course.
people had. I mean, it
course.
must be damaging, to be honest. It must be no matter how strong you are or your personality, it's good to reflect. It's good to meditate. All of that. Yes, I agree. Some good things come out of it, but at the end of the day, choice cannot be taken away from people, and that was my biggest problem with all of this. And again, the other extreme, and you start, and I don't want to go into conspiracy theories, but then you start going into the realm of some people actually want this, some people can get power off this.
We'll set that to the side. That's like we'll
I don't
keep-
believe in a lot of
keep
these.
those
but,
conversations
yeah.
for another time. But look, I really liked it. I think we really covered a lot. I guess the theme of the story is choice, right? It makes sense. No, it is seriously.
Yeah,
it seems to be. It seems to be
It is.
at its core. It's interesting. I think in hindsight, we'll have that ability to kind of look back. I hope we'll have the ability and the data to look back and see what was the right decision if things were taken in the right way. This is again our own opinions, right? And I want to be clear about that. We're not trying to say how things should have been done or what should have been done and what's correct and what's not correct. This is personal feelings for myself, for Michael, for Laith. It is what it is, and we're going to live through that and see how things play out like everyone else. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for coming. Thank you, Laith, as usual.
Thank you, Nameer. And thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you, guys.
Thanks,
Listen,
Laith.
again, as usual, please subscribe down, show us some love, put your comments, ask questions. If you have any ideas you want us to talk about, any sort of people you want us to see, we have a pretty good network. And hit us up with a like. And see you soon, man. Much love. Check you guys later.
Thanks.